I'm Madowo in Atlanta. Hello and welcome to Connect the World. Houthi rebels are warning they will target the United Arab Emirates if they continue operations in Yemen. This after a series of suspected drone strikes killed 3 people in Abu Dhabi. CNN's senior international correspondent Sam Kiley is in Abu Dhabi, where this is unfolding right now. Sam, what more do we know about these explosions in Abu Dhabi today?
Well, I think the first thing to say, sadly, is, Larry, that this is the first known deaths on Emirati soil.
And now we want to go to something that the whole world has been talking about, the visa saga that seemed like it might go on forever. It has now ended in defeat for Novak Djokovic. We've got reporters all around the world with more on the potential impact of this saga on sport, diplomacy, and COVID-19 rules. Scott McLean is in Belgrade, Serbia. But first, to Paula Hancock's live from Melbourne, Australia. The Australian government really came hard on Djokovic because they didn't want him to embolden anti-vaxxers in Australia. But what they did is make him a symbol for anti-vaxxers worldwide. So how's the public there reacting to his deportation? And could we see him back at the Australian Open, say, next year?
Well, Larry, people we've spoken to, the vast majority of them say, thank goodness this is over. It has, as you say, dragged on.
But Scott, Djokovic is a national treasure in Serbia, right? And the president has made that clear repeatedly in every statement he has made. So how has it been received back home?
Hey, Larry, yeah, there were fans this morning at the airport waiting for him at the VIP arrivals area.
Let's bring in our Amanda Davies, who's joining us now from London. So he is the sport's biggest star, Amanda, isn't he? And if he can't play at the Australian Open, if he remains unvaccinated, he may not be able to play at the French Open in May. So can the world number one remain the world number one if he can't play in all these Grand Slams?
Well, I mean, there is some serious thinking, as Scott was saying, for Novak Djokovic to do. Last season was arguably one of his best ever, where he claimed 3 of the tennis majors.
Welcome back. I'm Larry Madowo, and you're watching Connect the World. In the U.S., the FBI now says a hosted standoff at a synagogue in Texas over the weekend was in fact terrorism-related and targeted the Jewish community. CNN's Natasha Chen is in Colleyville in Texas and joins me now. What more are we learning, Natasha, about this attack?
Larry, the police are still here at the synagogue 2 days later. There are many houses. It's a residential area really close to this synagogue. So a lot of the neighbors were really in a tense position on Saturday during this 11-hour standoff.
Natasha Chen, thank you for your reporting. Let's get you up to speed now on some of the stories that are on our radar as we speak. South Korea says recent North Korean missile tests are very regrettable. Australia and New Zealand are working to get emergency relief aid to Tonga after tsunami waves caused by an underwater volcanic eruption heavily damaged parts of that country. Meteorologist Jennifer Gray joins us now. Is this the worst of what we have seen, or could there be more, Jennifer?
We're hoping that this is the worst of it. I mean, there's really no way to know when you're dealing with something of this magnitude.
Live from CNN Atlanta, this is Connect the World.
I'm Larry Madowo at CNN Center. Hello and welcome to Connect the World. He may be uncomfortable with the attention or the anti-vax label, but he's just become maybe the most famous anti-vaxxer in the world in the eyes of many people. Scott McLean and Paula Hancock, many thanks to you both. And let's talk about that, because Djokovic's chances of competing in the French Open in May are also up in the air. The country's sports ministry tells CNN all professional athletes who want to compete in France will have to follow its new vaccine pass law. Let me bring in now World Sport anchor Alex Thomas to look at what that means for Novak, because if he's the world number one, Alex, and he cannot play in 2 majors, he's just missed Australia and could miss the French Open in May, then what becomes of his career?
Well, it puts a huge question mark over it. He's not a young man anymore, although he's obviously still playing tennis well enough to be the world number one.
There could be the political will, but also the circus that comes with Djokovic, as we've seen from Australia. So it's going to be very interesting. Alex Thomas, thank you. Coming up, China is changing its Olympic ticket sales plans, while only a select few may end up seeing events in person. And How does a second booster shot affect resistance to COVID-19? We're getting a first look at that from Israel. With the Omicron variant driving a surge of COVID cases in China, officials say the tickets to the Olympics will no longer be sold to the general public. CNN's Selena Wang is joining us live from Tokyo. So they're not saying there will be no fans, Selena. They're just saying that it will be tightly controlled. How will it work exactly?
Yeah, that's right, Larry. So the general public in China cannot buy tickets. We've known for a while now that international spectators are banned. So when you turn on your TV and you see spectators in the stands at these Winter Olympics, they're going to be people who were specifically invited by authorities to attend these games.
Just moments ago, we got the initial results of a significant study into the efficacy of a fourth COVID vaccine shot. The study was done by one of Israel's top hospitals. It finds there is an increase in antibodies after a second booster shot of the Pfizer vaccine, but it may not be enough to effectively fight off the Omicron COVID variant. Our Hadass Gold has seen the results of that study, and she joins us now live from Jerusalem. For health authorities around the world, Hadass, who look to Israel for guidance because it's been a lead in vaccinations, what's the big takeaway from this study?
So the big takeaway from this today, first of all, it's preliminary results. This is before publication, but the officials at the Sheba Medical Center, which conducted this study, acknowledged the worldwide interest in just how effective a fourth dose of the vaccine would be against Omicron. And the results show that although they did see a nice increase in antibodies, and they said it was a higher increase than after the third dose, the first booster, they did not see that a fourth booster shot would be enough to prevent infection by Omicron. So
Matthew Chance is tracking developments for us from Kiev, and Frederick Platgen is in Moscow for us. Let's start with Fred. The European Union wants Russia to stop military threats against Ukraine. But what are the chances of a diplomatic solution to the Russia-Ukraine standoff?
Well, right now it's certainly looking very slim, and the signs certainly aren't very good. Rhetoric that we're getting here from Moscow, but quite frankly also internationally, does not seem to be pointing at any de-escalation, Larry.
And it is a lot of rhetoric indeed. Matthew, talk to us about the field there in Kiev after reports of that false flag operation that Fred was just talking about, this Friday's cyber attack, and last week's diplomatic talks that didn't seem to really have any positive outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the mood in Kiev, I mean, people are calm. And the reason for that isn't because there isn't a credible threat on the border of this country. It's because that the people in this country have, to be frank, lived with the possibility of a Russian invasion for many years.
Thank you so much for being here, Gabriela. Your report talks of economic violence. So I want to unpack that. For instance, how did the 10 richest men in the world get so wealthy when 99% of humanity is worse off because of the economic devastation of the pandemic?
Yes, thanks very much, Larry, for having me on. And yes, Oxfam, as you may know, has been tracking inequality for several years now, and billionaire wealth has been growing for the last 14 years. But in the last two, coinciding with the pandemic, it has really skyrocketed, and it has been a billionaire bonanza.
Prince Harry is challenging a government decision which bars him from personally funding police protection when he and his family are in Britain. His lawyers say the prince wants to bring them for a visit during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee this year. But he's concerned for their safety, especially after his own security was compromised as he left a London charity event last year. CNN's royal correspondent Max Foster is outside London, and he joins me now. So Max, Prince Harry is not asking the British taxpayer to pay for his police protection. He's offering to pay for it, but he's still not allowed to do so. Why is that?
Well, he's basically saying there's a particular threat in the UK that he doesn't have in the US, or that he's okay with his private security team in the US, but he needs additional state support in the UK because he's faced threats, and his family have faced threats from extremist groups and particular individuals. There doesn't seem like to be a way for him to return without that police support when you look at the various statements they've been putting out.
It's fascinating how so much of this family's life is fodder for the tabloids, and that obviously complicates their life significantly more. Max Foster, thank you. And thank you for watching Connect the World. I am Larry Madowo in Atlanta. One World with Zain Asher is next. Stay with CNN.